Pope Francis was known as a reformer. He sometimes clashed with the conservative Catholics. He broke tradition by washing the feet of only women prisoners last year. He also authorized the blessings for same-sex couples. And at times there was fierce opposition to his decisions. Others complained that he didn't go far enough. Father Edward Beck is a Roman Catholic priest and a religion and faith commentator. Father Beck is with me. Before we talk about Father Beck, what might be next, it would be imprudent of us not to just spend a moment or two reflecting on the enormous change, just firstly by a Jesuit, secondly by somebody who eschewed pomp and circumstance as much as possible and put the needs of the poor not just in words but in deeds first and foremost.
Right. And of course, Richard, that is how he began his papacy. You'll remember he went to the island of Lampedusa, which kind of was an entry point for many migrants, especially from Africa. And he went there to highlight the plight of migrants. As he said, those who are oppressed, those who are forgotten by society. That was going to be his focus, that the church should go to the margins. And he really lived his papacy that way, the way he began it. He kept consistent with that message.
But the way in which he fought the Curia, which put up a strong battle, not so much against his policies for the poor, but his wish to be more liberal. And I guess the question is, how much of that is embedded now? How much of those changes, or is the Catholic Church at a fork in the road?
Well, he certainly kind of went against the bureaucracy, and he said that there was too much bureaucracy. So he tried to simplify it. And again, he wanted priests and bishops to get out of their closed-in doors and to be pastors. That was the primary concern. Now, that legacy should be held on to because remember, he has appointed over 70% of the cardinals who will elect the next pontiff. And so you would think that he did choose men that were kind of on the fringe, some of them most definitely in accord with his vision, most of them in accord with his vision. So if those are the people to elect the new pontiff, you would expect that the tradition that Pope Francis began will continue with whomever they elect.
In my reading today, I was also reminded of those moments where he wasn't a pushover or a soft touch by any means, was he? In a sense, I'm thinking of the bishops that he fired. He would allow you to say, I don't agree with you. But once the decision was made, if you then continued down that road, he fired them.
That's right. I mean, in some ways, it followed in his own kind of imprint, because when he was a Jesuit provincial, the head of the Jesuit community, he was known as pretty tough as an administrator. He took no nonsense. And a lot of the Jesuits at that time didn't really like him because they thought he was too autocratic. Now, when he became Pope, that kind of changed. He wanted what was called a synodal church, one that brought the synod of various people that he would consult together. However, if leadership of the church were not in accord with his vision, he had no hesitancy about saying, well, look, I mean, if you're going to oppose it, fine, give me the reasons. But if you're going to undermine it and you're not going to follow it out, then you're gone. And we know bishops and cardinals that he, in fact, did that too. So he was no pushover. And people behind the scenes say, if you worked for him, you worked. He was certainly pastoral. He had a smile. He had a kindness for people. But as you said, he was tough as well.
He didn't, I was reading, he didn't really obey doctor's orders, did he? I mean, they said rest.
No.
And barely barely was he back in the house where he was living in Santa Maria. Barely was he back, and he was having meetings that weren't supposed to happen and probably shouldn't have happened, but did anyway. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Whether it's the U.S. Vice President, the King and Queen, King Charles and Queen Camilla, he just wouldn't stop.
You're right, Richard. And I really think he had a sense that his time was short. I think his illness really brought that home to him. And once he was out of the hospital, which he wanted to do, he wanted to return home. I think he realized that he wanted to put his lasting imprint. And so he wanted to be the worker bee that he had been previous to his hospitalization. And so he did go against doctor's orders, you're right. He met with people that he shouldn't have. Just on Holy Thursday, you saw, he went to a prison where he could not wash the feet of the prisoners as he had done in the past, but he greeted a great number of them in that room. You saw yesterday, on Easter Sunday, he rode the Pope Mobile through St. Peter's Square, and he touched babies. He let people get close to him. So yeah, he wasn't following doctor's orders, but I think he realized that time was short.
Father Beck, I'm grateful, and forgive me, I should have passed on my condolences to you, of course, because obviously a great loss for yourselves and other members of the ministry who to have lost your spiritual, you've lost your, we're a business program, you'll forgive me, you've lost the chairman, the CEO, all in one go, in a sense. So I send my thoughts and prayers to you, sir, tonight.